Good morning. This is the BLAINESWORLD podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also see us or listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And you can also get more information or listen to previous shows on our website, which is kind of behind me there, www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce somebody from one of my favorite organizations, and she is Lynn McKinney, who's the Executive Director's Assistant, I think I have that right, for ABCCM.
ABCCM.
Okay, ABC. Okay, got you. And Lynn, before we go any further, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. So if you're watching this, give a big wave, and that's Lynn McKinney. And I already messed it up, Lynn, but go through that acronym again. And what is that acronym for the organization?
It's ABCCM. It means Asheville Buncombe Community Christian Ministry.
Okay, got you. And for the benefit of the folks the few people who might be watching or listening to this who don't know what that organization is, what is it, if you would, please?
It began in 1969. It's that old, and it began when several churches came together thinking they could do more together than they could separately. People were already knocking on their doors for assistance, and it came at kind of during the civil rights movement, and so and it was black and white churches that came together to serve the poor, beginning with basic necessities, food and clothing, through the crisis ministry. And interestingly, I'll just say this: it began services in the same facility that Return to Bethlehem began, which is Trinity Episcopal on Church Street.
And explain the concept, because the very first time I heard it, it just knocked my socks off. But it's not just one church; it's how many churches?
300 plus.
Okay, and that's all Buncombe County or beyond Buncombe County?
Mostly Buncombe County, but there are some churches, like there's a church, I wish I could remember its name, in Charlotte, that's come several years, brought funds and folks and worked at the Veterans Restoration Quarters.
And it's just knocks my socks off the very first time I heard about it, because, I would have thought, hey, everybody could do their own individual thing, but the reality is they can't. And talk about why it's important that churches get together like this.
Well, as the founders thought, to do more together than they can individually. So we have a crisis ministry, which is how it began. And now there are 3 satellite offices, South, North, and Hominy Valley. Then there's a jail ministry, which serves in the Buncombe County Detention Center. And the medical ministry, which serves those within a certain income range in Buncombe County. They just serve Buncombe County, but they serve those that have no insurance, public or private insurance, and they receive medical care and their prescriptions at no cost.
I think what is it? There are like 7 total ministries, I think now, something like that. It's just each year, like I turn around and do a program on another one of the ministries. They just seem to, which is incredible. They just seem to be growing each year. So it started.
Then are the homeless ministries. That's what you're thinking about.
Right.
One for veterans, one, excuse me.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. One for veterans, one for women and children. And we've begun the newest one is Recovery Living Ministry at Steadfast. That was the old Steadfast building. It's Recovery Ministry Living at Costello House. And it's a Christian principled program for guys that are truly serious about wanting to get back on their feet, get back into recovery living. And so, and then the last ministry is amazing. It's called Veteran Services of the Carolinas, and they have a call center that answers for in all 100 counties of North Carolina, and they do rapid rehousing, they do job training. They have a suicide grant where they're working with people. They use peer support a lot for these guys that need someone that truly understands them.
And the thing that really impressed me about some of the work of these ministries is I just did a program on the women's facility, and they told me, what was it, 80% of the people who are involved in that no longer need the services anymore. They go on to other things. That's pretty impressive,
It is impressive.
You know,
and then also they follow up with them for 18 months. And I think that's unusual. They do that at the veterans quarters too. So they keep track of them, so they know 8 out of 10 are still housed and employed.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things I so much admire about the work you folks do is that even though it's a Christian ministry, it's open to anybody. Is that the idea behind it?
Yes.
Because yeah, it was kind of cool. So it's open to anybody, religious, race, age, whatever. It serves the whole community, which is is pretty incredible.
Ashwaubenon Community Christian Ministry.
Well, let me ask you this: in terms of the number you mentioned, 300 churches. It's kind of sad in a way, but has that gone down, or some churches have closed over the years, right? Was it larger than that at some point in time, or some new churches opening up?
No, it's 300 plus,
Right.
It's some churches are closing. It's just a sad time in our history.
Right. But very sad, but are some churches to replace them? Are some churches opening up now?
I have heard of some new churches. I can't call their names, but they have very inspiring names for their churches. And we have a new, excuse me.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you have a new.
We have a brand new staff person. His name is Chandler Carricker, and he's our church engagement officer. And so he's visiting the churches now, and he would know the names, I'm sure, of the newest ones that came in. I'm old and can't remember names.
Well, now, as part of his job, do you give him a pair of roller skates also to get to?
Well, he hasn't begun those yet, but as soon as he's there long enough.
But to get to 300 churches, that's a lot of churches to service. Let's talk then a little bit about Lynn McKinney. So you've been with the organization for a few years. Would you say how long?
Well, I'm in my 40th year, and the actual 40th anniversary is February the 7th, but I was a volunteer for a year and a half before that. So I feel confident saying I'm in my 40th year.
Now, you also told me off the air, you were one of the first hires, or were you one of the early hires?
I was one. Scott says that I was in the first group of volunteers that came, because he was wise and sent out bulletin inserts to the churches. At that point, I think there were 98 churches when he did that, when he sent out bulletin inserts. And it simply said, feeding the hungry and visiting those in prison. And I said, I know who said that. I'm going to go check this out. And I've been there ever since.
And I guess one of your claims to fame, I guess you were perhaps one of the youngest volunteers ever. You started when when you were 7, was it, or 8? You started. So one of the youngest volunteers. But talk about something you mentioned also, I think was kind of cool. And people should realize that if you want to get involved in an organization, even eventually work for the organization, one of the very first things you should do is volunteer. In other words, I think your story is an example. So you came as a volunteer, not looking for a full-time job at that time? So what led to a full-time job?
It would take a while to tell the history of me being there, but I was volunteering 2 days a week, and I was a telephone operator. And Scott brought down a job description, and he said, people might be calling about this job. And I looked at it, and it was me. I had relevant experience and everything. And I said, well, I might apply for this. And then I looked at him and I said, might, because I didn't know if I wanted to work that closely with anybody. Yeah, because it's you're working closely. And I mean, it's been a great 40 years. It's
as you're talking about it, it's kind of amazing, because you said telephone operators. There were actually at the time, you don't see too many telephone operators anymore.
a telephone operator.
I was going to say, when with cell phones, it seems you have no telephone operators anymore. Can you imagine? People have to answer their own phone now. For the most part, or the organization, I guess, has a a central phone number, but again, so you started out as a telephone operator.
Well,
How'd you get, not
actually, I was a receptionist and answered the telephone. Yeah.
okay.
So at that time, my desk was in with all the people that were waiting for services. So I was able to communicate and just, you can see I'm shy. And so I could talk with the people that were waiting for services. And it was a wonderful volunteer position.
So had that grow then to become Scott's assistant or right-hand person?
That was, I guess that was 83. I can't,
Sure.
I'm old and can't remember dates looking back. But yes, I was there as a volunteer for at least a year and a half. And then he brought that application down. And the interesting part, I think, of that story is that his wife is the one that chose my resume. And there were close to 70 that came in at that time. And she chose mine because I was the only applicant that mentioned the Lord.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. That, by the way, again, a good hint for some people wanting to work for this organization. That's a good suggestion, but that is really funny that you mentioned it. So you got hired, came on board, and then talk a little bit about your evolution with the organization. What else have you done with the organization leading up to kind of your present position?
Well, just watched it grow. When the next day after I saw that bulletin insert, I decided to go see, and I'm not sure if I said it out loud, but I thought it so hard it might have been out loud. I said, "My mama would spank me if she knew I was going in a place like this." It
Why so?
it looked bad. It looked bad, and so it just did. And when Scott and Shirley came, Scott said, "Oh, maybe it's nice on the inside." But immediately after I went on staff, we began a building campaign, and we built the site at 24 Cumberland Avenue. It's been improved once, but
So would your
and
mama
it was, excuse me,
would your mama be proud now, you think?
she was very proud. Then she passed on, but yeah,
No,
she
but
was proud.
would she be proud now of the current situation, the
Mhm.
current?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, she would. Yeah, she
So
would.
if she's listening to us, which she probably is, then she'll know that
Huh.
it didn't improve. So talk about then your other kind of responsibilities with the organizations. So what else did you do aside from answering the phone and being a receptionist?
Well, that was my volunteer
Right.
position, and then then came the building for the crisis ministry, and after that, donations were really heavy, and so then we got uh, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. After the crisis ministry was when the unfortunate happening that a veteran froze to death on the streets, and so we began the crisis ministry. St. Lawrence Catholic Church gave their Undercroft, and it was just an overnight shelter at that time. And then um, the downtown renovation was going on, and Reverend Alan Rice connected Scott. He was doing the construction. His family was doing the construction. He's a Methodist minister, and he connected that man with Scott. And he gave us the building down on Cox Avenue, which was where the first overnight shelter was. And so then soon after that, we acquired the building next door to it, and that was our donation center and thrift store. And then after that, the medical ministry began. And then in 2008, we moved from that building on Cox Avenue to where the Veterans Restoration Quarters is now on Tunnel Road, just a mile east of Tunnel Road. I mean, of the VA hospital on Tunnel Road.
And so then when did you become, or I don't need the year, but when did you get involved as becoming Scott's assistant? When did that take
Oh,
place?
right away
Oh, right
in
away. Well,
84,
well, let
since
me ask you
1984.
this, and we need almost a show just for that. But what does a executive director's assistant do? Talk about just, and we need a whole show for just that. But what are some of the things you do?
Well, there's ABCCM truly is church owned and volunteer led. And so we have committees for each area of the ministry, and they truly do make the decisions and keep track. Like there's a finance committee, there's a property committee, there's a personnel committee, marketing committee, and so you keep up with those committees and you form relationships with all those people. Each program that I mentioned has a program director, and you just get closer serving them as and just you're the conduit for information for Scott and all these people. And it's interesting that when I came on board was about the time cell phones did begin, and I've said over the years that I don't know how we could have done business without a cell phone, because he's out and gone so much of the time visiting with people, and so just keeping track and trying to help him stay on track with his appointments and everything. So it's a full-time job.
Well, and
And
just listening to you, I'm just kind of amazed, that, and I don't know Scott well, but just that he can do all these kinds of things for so many people. I mean, but I guess that's the nature of the organization. You're trying to do as many things as you possibly can for as many people. So,
well, and
yeah,
excuse me, he just has vision, and then the Lord brings it about. He doesn't just think of it; he just sees things that need doing, and the Lord blesses it. I mean, I hear Scott say so often, and I just love this. He says, "I love my boss."
oh,
He gives the Lord the glory.
but it's not it's really a great line. And what's incredible about the organization, I think, is that it keeps finding new things to get involved in. It's not like you said with 90 some odd churches in the beginning, and now 300 plus churches with a few programs in the beginning. Boy, you never run out of stuff to do. I would say, or the organization does. So
Let me just say
now,
one thing about
please.
when we were on Cox Avenue. That's when the numbers of homeless women began to go up. And so we had homeless women and children there at 207 Cox Avenue as well. And I always just love saying how the Lord blessed that. I mean, you can think of things that could have gone wrong with homeless men and women in a shelter, but God is good. And we got the building on Hillside for women and children around the year 2000. I can't remember exactly. And that's grown into the program that you heard about yesterday with Carolyn and Beverly.
Now let's talk about the other program that you folks are involved in, which is perhaps one of my favorites, and that's then something called Road to Bethlehem. That's Return to Bethlehem, sorry. And for the benefit of the folks who don't know what that program is all about, and they're going to learn soon, what is it?
It's a recreation of the Bethlehem marketplace, as it might have been when Jesus was born. Visitors, or travelers, we like to say, go through Bethlehem in groups of 7. They're given a Hebrew family name for the census, of course. That's what was happening then. And so that family group walks through the marketplace, and they overhear conversations from the bread ladies and the fruit ladies, and it just the prisoners and the rabbi. I think I know someone that was the rabbi one year. And so then it ends in a nativity, a live nativity, and it's wonderful.
How long has that been going on?
I think 36, 37 years. We paused it during COVID,
right.
But
so that must have been something when it first began, the very first one, and you were there when it first began.
Yes.
I mean, I have to invite people, and we'll give a short break to mention how people can see this. But if you've never seen it, it's something you have to go to. Or if you've never seen it even once, you'll want to go every year. When is it this year?
It's, oh my goodness, let me look at my calendar. It's the second weekend in December. I'm looking so I don't give the wrong dates. But I'd like to say that there's a precious founder is Mimi Shackelford, and she brought the script and everything to us. So yes, it's December 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. On the 7th and 8th, that's Thursday and Friday at 6 to 8:30, hosted graciously again this year by Gross Methodist on Tunnel Road. And then on Saturday, it's did I say 6 to 8:30 for Thursday and Friday?
Yeah, for the
I can't
nights.
remember. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And then Saturday it's 2 to 8:30, and then Sunday 2 to 6.
Okay. And for the benefit of the folks who don't know, that's the church hosts it. And where's that located? It's on
It's on
off
Tunnel Road,
right.
900 something Tunnel Road.
It's right off Tunnel Road. But it's just
Mm-hmm.
describe the process, because again, it's hard for me to talk about it, but I love talking about it to somebody who's never seen it before. So they come to the church, and what happens when they come there?
When they first come in, they're greeted by they receive their Hebrew family name. And I said groups of 7 walk through. We've heard that that's just a good number for everybody to be able to hear
Sure.
at each of the markets, at each of the shops. And so they wait in the sanctuary, and the front of the sanctuary there's a screen that flashes up the next Hebrew family name of those that will be going through Bethlehem. So maybe 3 are on from one family and 4 from another, or 2 and 2. It's just they meet at the back of the sanctuary. They meet all their cousins, get ready to go for their journey. We call it a journey of the heart. And so then they go, and they get in a modern day elevator, which is a time machine. They end up and they're greeted when they get off, to just kind of get them in the mood. And then they start at Bethlehem. They go through Bethlehem.
And they're greeted by people. You should mention that these are all people, I guess, dressed in costumes, or how are they dressed?
Yes,
So,
the best we can do.
okay. And so the actual journey, you walk through it, it takes about how long?
10, 15 minutes. It's just according to how crowded the streets are. We like for them to be crowded. It just seems more like a marketplace.
And it's more fun when they're crowded and
It
people
is.
are talking. And then what's very impressive is that, so they walk through the marketplace and they wind up where?
At a wonderful live nativity.
Okay. And it's, again, something has to be seen to believe, but who's part of the that scene? Yeah.
Well, there's you just pass the inn, and then there's a shepherd that just has wonderful lines. And then you go stand before the live nativity. There's a donkey there, and there's the mother and the baby, and Joseph.
Because you were asking the roles, I think I mentioned to you off there, I was a rabbi one time, I was a social guard. I wanted to be, I think last year I wanted to be baby Jesus, but they wouldn't let me be baby. I was disappointed, So
I
that
know that you have teeth, and that's a requirement.
then I wanted to be a jackass also, but they wouldn't let me do that too. So this year I'll have to go with something different. But let's talk about that process, which is great. So how many people are involved in this in
Oh
terms
my
of,
goodness, I can't remember how many.
but it's at least, would you say 40, 50, I would say.
Maybe, yeah, I'd say, yeah,
And
at
so
least 40, I guess.
in terms of getting those people, let's talk about that process, because if
Okay.
anybody's watching or listening, I strongly encourage you to volunteer for this, in that it's you don't need acting ability, or you just need to come out for it. That's open to anybody, right? Men, women, almost any age. What's the
Well, we're
age limit?
looking more for men right now. Thankfully, we've had a different process this year, which has worked wonderfully. Caleb Bradshaw is heading up this part, and I thought he was brilliant to send out an email to all our newsletter list, which is like 17,000, and to just say, come, be involved. And it was just an earlier notice than we'd ever done. And so they have the cast almost full for Thursday and Friday, but on Saturday and Sunday we have need for men more than women. There's some women's parts, but I'll just say that children have to be old enough to stay in character for that long. It's hard for younger children to do that. I don't know if you ended up with children that were too small when you were the rabbi.
Occasionally, but I was amazed at the quality of the people who came out. I was very impressed with.
That's
And
good.
so if you volunteer, then first of all, we should mention, if they want to find out information about volunteering, what's the best bet to find out? Where do you find it?
I think just go to abccm.org, to go to our website, and up at the top, there's a bar. You click on events, and you'll see Return to Bethlehem there.
Okay. And so if people go there, they can only volunteer, but they can find out the times and and location,
Exactly.
all that good stuff.
Mhm.
And we
Mhm.
should mention, if somebody's listening, that if they want to volunteer, they don't have to volunteer, which is kind of nice. They don't have to volunteer for 4 full days, right? There are
Oh,
different shifts.
there's different shifts, and they're 3 to 4 hours.
Okay.
And we advertise that end time at 8:30, but that's when we close the doors. So the church might still have a lot of people at 8:30, and so the end time might go longer, maybe till 9.
Well, if I
So
can
we
ask,
tell.
if I can
Mhm.
ask for a recommendation for you, because this would help some people think of attending this. Is there kind of a best time to come to this, or a time where it's less crowded than other times?
Um, I've always said Thursday night seems to
Right.
be less crowded, but it's always been crowded.
Because I know friends one year came, I think it was on a Saturday afternoon or something. It was really jammed, So
Mhm.
you're raising a good point. If you want to, perhaps Thursday night might be the best bet to come.
Might be.
But weekends probably get a little bit more crowded. And
Mhm.
so we should also mention too that if they come, there's no charge for this. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a beggar at the first and the last, and we love for the folks to respond to the beggar. Um, we call this ABCCM's gift to the community, and we've loved doing that. I had something else really important I was going to say, and I've forgotten what it is.
Well, we'll come back to it. But the nice thing about the gift too is, so you're looking more for men, but it can be men or women can come. And they're just volunteering their time, so they don't get paid, but just kind of a gift. They're giving a gift to the community. Isn't that
That's
a
right.
great thing to do? And do you
Mhm.
have people, such as myself, but others, do a lot of people come back each year and do it?
Oh, yes. A lot of people have said that that they don't feel like they've begun Advent without coming to Bethlehem. And that's true. I mean, we all love doing it. I remembered what I was going to say,
Yeah.
and that is that, folks should come prepared to wait in the sanctuary until their Hebrew family name comes up. But there's entertainment while you wait in the sanctuary. There's music going on, or um, other things.
By the way, that's something else people I know can volunteer for too, if they are musicians or they want to perform
Oh, yes,
in the
please.
sanctuary, just
Uh-huh.
a fun kind of thing too. And so the other thing we should mention about this too, Lynn, which impressed me also, aside from not, I mean, you don't want young children other than baby Jesus, but you want, children who can keep in park for a while. But age limit, I guess you'll go what do you have, young to old? What's the oldest people volunteer for this?
Oh my goodness, we have old people. We
the
do.
so so there's no age limit. But the other thing I liked about it, I was so impressed, even though a lot of people kid me about this, is there's no religious requirement on it either. And we should mention that you don't have to be a certain religion to
Right.
participate, which I kind of thought was kind of nice. So
Well, that goes for all of ABCCM. We're open to all to
okay, which
volunteer. I mean, all
okay,
of ABCCM,
but that's
all
kind of
of
nice.
ABCCM
So not only in
family.
terms of volunteering, but also serving the community. You have
Sure.
there's no religious tie-in to that at all.
No, I mean, we're unashamedly Christian, but that makes us open to all.
Like unashamedly, but you don't feel it though. You go there and you
That's
feel
right.
welcome. Anybody comes there, I've always
hmm
felt very welcome to this.
hmm
Ballpark, would you have any idea as to how many people go through this each year?
Oh, I should have asked like that.
I'm
I
just
didn't
curious.
think to ask him that.
I would say I'd say several thousand maybe.
I don't know, thousands, but definitely hundreds.
Yeah. Well, when I go, it's jammed all the time, and
It was
just
jammed. Groups go through it every couple of minutes.
so I guess the real key back to that, if you're looking to attend it, is that if it's not crowded, you'll get through it relatively quickly. If it's crowded, you might want to be prepared to wait, or you may have to stay a little bit. Like I said, but you're being entertained at the same time too.
Right. hmm
Have you
That's right.
seen over the 37 years? Have you seen any changes in it over the years, or does it stay relatively stable? The
It's
production.
the script has stayed pretty much. One year we had a young girl, a young child that was, I don't remember, like after the second or third place, and it was talking about the Romans, that they were living under Roman rule, and a little girl, oh my gosh, she was 6 or 7, and she just looked up at the group and she said, "They are very cruel." And I mean, she just said that. Well, that's in the cast now.
Oh,
I mean, in the script, and there's, that we've added a few things, but it's pretty much like Mimi brought it.
Well, it's funny you said that because one year I brought a buddy of mine, Brian Biro, and he played the soldier that year. He did such a good job that a little baby, a little child, a little boy was crying, as a result of it. And my friend felt so bad. He's such a nice guy, and he made this little kid cry, and he had to
Uh-huh.
apologize. I'm so don't
Uh-huh.
worry about it. But I guess he was really doing a good job. He was
Gee, he
the
was.
minister.
We have a precious volunteer
Yeah,
that's been in it since he was a little boy. I mean, a little boy, like, I don't know, 12,
right.
14, something like that. And he helps put up the set. His name is Zach McTaggart. And he plays a soldier a lot. And we have this line I'm always saying to him, it's not about boo. It's not about scaring the
Right.
children.
By the way, I think I know who you're talking about. But it's a great line. The
Uh-huh.
So also if people want to volunteer, they can, I guess, choose a part, but you can also help them come up with a part that's needed. Is that what happens?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand
When
that.
I'm sorry, when they volunteer, do they volunteer for a specific part, or do you assign them to a part? How does that get done?
Lots of people sign up for the part they've done for years. There was a mother and a daughter. I'm not sure how old they are, but they've been doing it for 20 years. And they wanted their specific part and were blessed to get that yesterday. So, and then others, then Caleb just talks to them and puts them in where the need is.
And what's so
And let
impressive,
me just say this,
yeah,
that there, except the rabbi and a couple, the innkeeper and just a couple of places have, more than just one or two lines. It's not, you just say the same line over and over and over
and
for each group.
what's so impressed me every year I see it is that last minute Caleb and some of the other people just take somebody else and assign them to a new part, so they just, when you have an
Yeah.
opening or somebody else can
Hmm.
show. But again, I'm amazed every year that somehow it goes on, that you
Yes.
find the people for the parts, or I guess some people have
Hmm.
double up on parts, or
Hmm.
other parts doesn't get covered. Have you ever had a part in it?
No, I've had the same position all these years, and I greet the folks that come off the elevator.
Well, it's probably fun though too.
Oh, that's so much fun. I love doing it.
Do you see people come back every year over and over?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Do you see people?
Some
Yeah.
people say, well, you've been doing this for a long time. Hmm.
So great event. So let's just recap a little bit. The best bet again, if you have the dates handy again, when does it run?
Let me look again, December the 7th, I think it was, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Okay.
December the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th.
So a couple of nights and then a couple of days and nights.
Hmm.
And they can still sign up or find out about the event by going to what website?
I just go to ABCCM's website, and it's abccm.org, not com, abccm.org. And then on the top bar, click on events, and you'll see Return to Bethlehem. That'll
And
take you for more information.
lastly, this event just knocks my socks off in that it takes almost a village to put on the event. When do you begin planning for the event, and how long does that process take?
Usually early October.
Okay. So, I mean, it's incredible to be able to put this on over a 2 month period, October, November, in a 2 month period of
Hmm.
time. A
Hmm.
lot of work involved in it.
A lot of work. We have a guy on staff, Ed. Oh my goodness, I forgot Ed's name. It'll come to me maybe before I finish bragging up.
By the way, wouldn't that be a good name for somebody? Oh my goodness,
Mhm.
and oh my goodness,
Uh,
or
Ed, oh
that
my
guy.
goodness, that would be right about Ed. He's been putting together the set for many years, and Zach, I mentioned earlier, helps with that too, and Paul, and just guys that are closely associated, or Ed is closely associated with the Veterans Quarters, and he's knows exactly how to put it up. He's done it so many years.
How long does it take to put that set up and then break it down?
Usually a day.
Yeah.
And then we have another group. Ann Miller is heading up the group that is going to decorate the set, and that's a big deal too. To make it do it. We do a lot with cloth, and covering the rise, not risers, the back things,
Right, backdrop, whatever.
backdrop, whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of those, and they're covered with cloth and baskets and fruit, and there's, like we said, there's wood carvers and there's weavers and dyers.
So that'd be something else people, if they want to volunteer for. You're also, I guess, needing people to set this up and break it down afterward if they want to get
maybe.
involved in that.
Yeah, they could get with Caleb about that too, and he could pass that along to Ed.
Okay. And the real key, what I hear you saying, and I think it's true about the organization, that if people want to get involved, in not only in terms of this particular event, but in anything, you people are looking for volunteers.
Always. There's always a place for volunteers. It's I think we have right before COVID, we were over 6,000, and and we are I think at 5 now. I'm not sure. Folks that have come back and
Number of volunteers. Wow.
Oh, yeah, right around the 5,000.
And the great thing, I think you being a great example of it, is that if you volunteer, which I think is really cool, you're going to be put to work. It's not you're going to sit around. And again, if you want to gain experience, not necessarily to be hired by the organization, but anywhere else, what a great way to gain experience on, and then what I love about giving back to the community,
That's right.
Again, as you call it, the gift to the community.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Our logo and inside is a circle. It's a Celtic cross. Excuse me. It says serving one another in the name of Christ.
I love it. But that's what you do, and do it very well. So anyway, I'd like to thank you, Lynn McKinney, for being my guest on this edition of the podcast. By the way, congratulations. I understand this is the very first time you've ever done a podcast. Okay. I told you survived. You did very well. And
that's right. This is my favorite subject.
Okay, well, and I can tell do well. So hopefully I'll see you, or now you know who you are. When I come in a couple of weeks, I'll see you and get a warm greeting as I get off the elevator.
Definitely.
Lynn, thanks a lot. Stay with me. I'm just going to sign off, but you stay with me for a second. You be well.
Alrighty.
Thanks.
Okay.